When Allah elevates you, the very first thing you must do is to recognize with absolute clarity where that elevation came from. And I don't just mean saying Alhamdulillah as a quick reflex after a promotion, a sudden windfall, or being praised in public. I mean truly internalizing deep in your heart that no amount of your own intelligence, hard work, or networking could have guaranteed this outcome without Allah allowing it. You see, the human being has a tendency built into our psychology to take ownership of success. It feels nice to believe that we earned it, that it's the result of our grind, our late nights, our clever moves. And yes, Islam does not deny effort. We are commanded to strive with excellence. But there is a dangerous shift that happens in the heart when the focus tilts from asterisk. Allah granted me asterisk to asterisk. I did this. Asterisk, that shift is subtle. You don't wake up one morning suddenly declaring yourself self-sufficient. It creeps in through the language you use, through the thoughts you entertain, until the blessing that should have made you more humble ends up making you more self-absorbed. Philosophically, this is about source recognition. Every cause in this universe is only a secondary cause. You get the degree because you studied, but who gave you the health to study? You land the contract because you worked your network, but who placed you in the right place at the right time with the right skill set and the right opportunities? Strip away the layers and you find that at the root of it all is the will and mercy of Allah. He says in the Quran, asterisk, and whatever you have of favor it is from Allah, asterisk 1653. That's an absolute statement, asterisk, whatever asterisk you have, not some things, not just spiritual things, everything. From a psychological perspective, acknowledging Allah as the source of your elevation does two crucial things for you. First, it keeps you grounded. Success without humility becomes toxic. It turns into arrogance, entitlement, and eventually spiritual blindness. When you know your blessings are a gift, you can't look down on others who haven't received the same. Second, it protects you from anxiety over losing what you've gained. If you truly believe Allah gave it, then you also know that He can replace it with something better if it's taken away. Your heart becomes less attached to the blessing and more attached to the one who gives it. That shift changes everything. The Quran gives us two archetypes. One is Qarun, who was immensely wealthy and said, asterisk, I was only given it because of knowledge I have. Asterisk, he saw himself as the source. His story ends in destruction. The other is Prophet Suleiman, a king with unimaginable power, who, upon receiving the throne, said, asterisk, this is from the favor of my Lord, to test me whether I will be grateful or ungrateful. Asterisk, same worldly elevation, but a completely different heart posture. One said, I did this. The other said, Allah gave this and now I must prove my gratitude. Which one do you want to be? Some people fear that if they keep attributing their success to Allah, it might make them passive, as though they'll stop putting in effort. But that's a misunderstanding. In Islam, recognizing Allah as the source is not an excuse for laziness, it's fuel for striving. Because you know the door of success is in His hand, you're motivated to keep knocking through both effort and dua. You prepare your field, but you know only Allah sends the rain. This balance between work and tawakkul is the secret to sustainable success without spiritual corrosion. If you find yourself elevated in any way, maybe people now listen to your opinion, maybe your career is taking off, maybe your marriage or family life is thriving, pause and remind yourself, this is not my doing alone. This is a trust from Allah. Even your ability to make good decisions is a gift. Your ability to think clearly, to stay disciplined, to bounce back from setbacks, these are divine favors. The moment you think they are asterisk, yours asterisk in an absolute sense, you start building your identity on something fragile, but when you see them as asterisk his asterisk gifts, you carry them lightly, without pride and without fear. So when Allah elevates you, your first responsibility is to realign the narrative in your mind and in your speech. This came from Him. Say it, believe it, and let it show in your humility towards others, because if you get this first step wrong, every other step will crumble. But if you get it right, every blessing becomes a ladder to closeness with Allah instead of a trap for your ego. Never forget, the higher Allah raises you, the more dangerous it becomes to forget who lifted you. And the safest heart is the one that bows lower the higher it is elevated. When Allah elevates you, the natural response of the heart should be gratitude, but not the shallow, half-asleep kind of gratitude that disappears as quickly as it appears. I'm talking about a deep, conscious shukr that transforms how you think, how you speak, and how you act. because gratitude in Islam is not just a polite thank you to Allah, it is a state of being. It's a lens through which you see every blessing and a discipline that shapes how you use it. The Quran tells us, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you, 14:7. Now, many people recite this verse and stop at the increase part, as if gratitude is some magic formula to get more material gain, but the truth is deeper. The increase Allah promises is not always in quantity, often it is in quality. He may increase the barakah in what you already have. He may expand your contentment so that what you once thought was small now feels abundant. And yes, sometimes He gives you more, but that more comes as a test to see if your gratitude will grow with it. Psychologically, gratitude has a purifying effect on the ego. Human mind naturally adapts to blessings, what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. You get the promotion, the new car, the bigger house, and for a while you feel the rush. But soon it becomes normal and your appetite shifts to wanting more. Gratitude interrupts that cycle. It forces you to slow down, to acknowledge the value of what you have before you start chasing the next thing. And in Islam, this is not just about emotional well-being, it's about spiritual safety. Because ingratitude is the seed from which arrogance and heedlessness grow. Philosophically, gratitude is the bridge between recognizing Allah as the source and using His blessings correctly. Once you know the blessing is from Him, gratitude is what turns that knowledge into action. The scholars describe 3 dimensions of shukr: with the heart, with the tongue, and with the limbs. With the heart, you acknowledge the gift and love the one who gave it. With the tongue, you praise Allah openly, not to boast, but to inspire others to remember Him. And with the limbs, you use that blessing in ways that please Him. If Allah gives you wealth, gratitude is not merely saying Alhamdulillah. It's spending in charity, avoiding extravagance, and safeguarding that wealth from haram. If He gives you influence, gratitude is using that influence to amplify good and not to serve your ego. One of the most dangerous misunderstandings is thinking that gratitude is just a feeling. In Islam, gratitude without action is incomplete. Imagine a person who receives a gift from you, smiles and says thank you, but then uses that gift to harm themselves or others. Would you consider that real gratitude? Of course not. The same applies to Allah's blessings, saying Alhamdulillah, but misusing blessing is not gratitude, it's lip service. Look at the example of the Prophet. When he was asked why he prayed so much at night despite his sins being forgiven, he said, shall I not be a grateful servant? His gratitude was not passive. It was expressed through effort, through excellence in worship, through a life aligned with the giver's pleasure. Gratitude for him was not a moment, it was a lifestyle. There's also a subtle test here. Gratitude is easy when blessings are obvious, a job offer, a healthy child, a safe journey. But when the blessing is hidden in difficulty, gratitude becomes an act of higher spiritual maturity. Sometimes Allah elevates you through trials, shaping your character, building your resilience, and positioning you for greater good. If you can see His hand even in what feels like a setback, your gratitude becomes unshakable. And that's the kind of gratitude that leads to true elevation, because it's not dependent on circumstances. Practically speaking, if Allah has elevated you, make gratitude your first daily discipline. Start your mornings by recalling 3 specific blessings you have right now, not vague generalities, but concrete, personal ones. Then think, how can I use each of these today in a way that would please Allah? Gratitude is not only remembering the gift, but also intentionally directing it toward good. And remember, ingratitude is not just forgetting the blessing, it's forgetting the responsibility that comes with it. When Allah gives you more, He's not just giving you comfort, He's giving you a trust, and the more grateful you are in action, the more secure that blessing becomes. If you take nothing else from this, take this. Gratitude is the currency that keeps the doors of blessing open. And the highest form of gratitude is not what you say after the blessing, it's how you live because of it. When Allah elevates you, one of the greatest dangers you will face is the quiet, creeping arrival of pride. Pride rarely announces itself with a trumpet. It doesn't usually show up as someone standing in the mirror saying, I'm better than everyone else. No, it's far more subtle than that. It begins as a small shift in perspective. You start comparing yourself to others and feeling ever so slightly superior. You begin to expect special treatment, perhaps even subconsciously. You stop listening to certain people because you think they have nothing to teach you. And over time, What began as a blessing from Allah becomes a reason for your spiritual downfall. This is why the Prophet warned us so severely about even a mustard seed's worth of arrogance in the heart. Arrogance is not always about your clothes or your car. It is, at its core, a rejection of truth and a disdain for people. And this is why, when Allah elevates you, you must be vigilant. Shayan himself was elevated, his knowledge, his worship, his status among the angels, but it was pride that caused his ruin. He looked at Adam and thought, I am better than him. That one thought, unchecked, led to his eternal curse. From a psychological point of view, pride feeds on the human desire for validation. The more people praise you, the more you risk anchoring your self-worth in their words instead of Allah's approval. You start needing the applause, craving the recognition, and once your identity is built on how high you are compared to others, humility becomes uncomfortable. You may even start avoiding people who challenge you or bring you back down to earth. That is a dangerous place to be because it means you are no longer serving Allah purely, you're serving the image you've built of yourself. Philosophically, humility is not about pretending you have no talents or denying the blessings Allah has given you. It's about recognizing that your talents and blessings do not make you inherently better than anyone else. They simply mean you have been entrusted with a different test. Someone else's test may be poverty, illness, or obscurity. Yours may be wealth, health, or influence, and often the test of elevation is harder because the traps are less obvious. The Quran tells us the story of Pharaoh, who was given immense power. His crime was not just his oppression, it was that he became deluded into thinking he was self-sufficient, even divine. Now, most of us would never openly claim divinity, but the attitude of I don't need anyone, I don't need advice, I don't need to change, is a miniature version of the same disease. It's the spiritual isolation that comes from thinking elevation is a permanent status instead of a temporary loan from Allah. So, how do you guard against this? First, by consciously remembering your weaknesses and flaws. Even at your peak, recall moments in your life when you were struggling, when you were dependent on others, when you made mistakes. This doesn't diminish your current success, it simply keeps it in perspective. Second, surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. One of the most dangerous signs of pride is that you only keep company with those who flatter you. The righteous companions of the past would say, the one who hides my faults from me is my enemy, and the one who shows them to me is my friend. And finally, keep acts of worship that are private between you and Allah. Public deeds can be corrupted by the need for recognition, but private acts purify the heart and remind you why you're really striving. When no one else sees you, you can't feed your pride with their approval. You feed your soul with his nearness. Remember, elevation is not proof that you are better, it is proof that you are being tested differently. And pride is a poison that turns blessings into a curse. The higher Allah lifts you, the more you must bend your heart in humility, because the moment you start looking down on people, you've forgotten the one above you. Never let the heights you've reached make you forget the dust you came from or the grave you are heading to. When Allah elevates you, whether in wealth, status, knowledge, or influence, it is never meant to be just for you. In Islam, blessings are not designed to stop at the recipient, they are meant to flow through you to others. Think of yourself as a channel, not a storage container. When Allah gives you more, He is entrusting you with a tool, a resource, a position that could change lives. The real question is, will you use it for yourself alone, or will you let it become a means of a means of goodness that benefits others? The Prophet made it clear that the most beloved of people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to others. Notice something profound here. The measure is not simply how much worship you do in private or how much knowledge you've acquired, but how much of a positive impact you have on the lives of other people. Of course, worship and knowledge are essential, but if they don't translate into mercy, generosity, and service, then they remain incomplete. Psychologically, we know that serving others has a transformative effect on the heart. When you actively seek to help people, you disrupt the ego's tendency to make life all about you. Instead of constantly measuring the world by how it serves your interests, you begin to see yourself as part of a larger human story. That shift is both humbling and empowering. It humbles you because you realize how small you are in the grand scheme, yet it empowers you because you see that even small acts can have ripples far beyond your own life. Philosophically, this is about purpose. The Quran reminds us that human beings were created as Khalifa caretakers on this earth. That means every resource you have, whether it's your time, your skills, your connections, or your wealth, is part of that trust. When you use your position to serve others, you are not doing them a favor. You are fulfilling the very role you were created for. And when you fail to do so, you are essentially rejecting part of your purpose. Look at the examples in our tradition. Abu Bakr was elevated as the first Khalifa after the Prophet, yet he continued to milk goats for the neighbors, even after assuming leadership. Why? Because service was not something he rose above. It was the very reason for his elevation. Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the most powerful leaders in history, would walk the streets at night in disguise to check on the welfare of his people. These were not publicity stunts, they were genuine acts of responsibility. They understood that the higher Allah raises you, the more people fall under your care. From a practical perspective, service doesn't always mean large-scale charity projects or building institutions, though those are beautiful. Sometimes it's about the immediate people in your sphere. If Allah has given you knowledge, teach it without arrogance and without withholding it for personal gain. If He's given you a voice that people listen to, use it to defend those who can't speak for themselves. If He's given you financial stability, identify those struggling quietly and lift some of their burden without making them feel humiliated. And here's something important. Serving others is not just about the material. Many people have wealth but feel emotionally starved. Many are surrounded by people but feel unseen. Sometimes your smile, your attentive listening, your words of encouragement, these are acts of service more valuable than gold to someone in that moment. The Prophet taught that even a smile is charity. That means there is no one here who can say, I have nothing to give. There's also a safeguard in service. It protects you from the corruption that can come with elevation. The more time you spend helping others, the less time your ego has to feed on superiority. The more you see the struggles of others, the harder it becomes to fall into ingratitude for your own situation. Service keeps your heart human. Remember, every blessing will be questioned on the Day of Judgment. The Quran says, then you will surely be asked that day about the pleasures, 102:8. That includes the pleasure of influence, the pleasure of comfort, the pleasure of respect. On that day, the only answer worth giving is, Ya Allah, I used what you gave me to make life better for your servants. So when Allah elevates you, don't build walls around your blessing, build doors. Let others walk through them, because what you give away in service never truly leaves you. It multiplies in the sight of Allah, and the most lasting legacy are not the titles you held or the positions you occupied, but the lives you touched along the way. The real measure of your elevation is not how high you've climbed, but how when Allah elevates you, one of the easiest traps to fall into is thinking, I've made it. You start believing you've reached a point where the basics can be relaxed, where worship can be scaled back because life is busy now. And yet, the truth is exactly the opposite. The higher Allah raises you, the more you need to anchor yourself in consistent worship and private good deeds. Why? Because elevation is not just a blessing, it's a test, and the only way to pass it is to keep your heart tied to the one who gave it. The danger is subtle. When life gets more demanding, more responsibilities, more meetings, more invitations, the very things that brought you closer to Allah in the first place can start to slip. The prayer is still there, but it's rushed. The Quran is still in your home, but it gathers dust. The moments of quiet reflection are replaced with constant activity. And before you realize it, you've built a life so full of blessings that you have no space left for the one who gave them. From a psychological perspective, success and elevation tend to shift our focus outward to managing people, handling tasks, keeping up appearances. Private acts of worship shift the focus back inward. They realign you with your purpose. They strip away the performance, and they remind you that your worth is not in how the world sees you, but in how Allah sees you. Without that inner grounding, outward success becomes hollow. Philosophically, there's something profound here. The Quran describes those who are distracted by wealth and children until they forget the hereafter. The warning is not against having wealth or children, these are blessings. The warning is against allowing them to displace Allah from the center of your life. Private worship, those moments when no one is watching, is your declaration that no matter how full your hands are, your heart still belongs to Him. First, look at the life of the Prophet. Even when the entire city of Medina was under his leadership, even when the responsibilities of guiding a growing nation were on his shoulders, his nights were spent in long prayer, often until his feet swelled. And when asked why, despite having his sins forgiven, he replied, *, shall I not be a grateful servant? Asterisk, that's the model. Elevation should not reduce your worship, it should deepen it. There is also a practical reason to keep private good deeds. They protect sincerity. Public deeds, even with the best intentions, carry the risk of being tied to your image. Private deeds are different. When no one knows, there is no audience to impress, no praise to collect. It's just you and Allah. These deeds become the secret roots that nourish the tree of your faith. Without roots, the tree looks fine for a while until the first storm comes and it falls. Another benefit of consistent worship in private is that it keeps you in a state of spiritual humility. It's hard to feel untouchable when you've just been alone before Allah, asking for forgiveness with tears in your eyes. No matter how many people look up to you outside, in those moments you are reminded that you are still a servant, dependent, flawed, and in need of His mercy. That perspective is a shield against the arrogance and complacency that elevation can breed. And let's be clear, consistent worship does not mean hours of seclusion every day if your life cannot accommodate it. It means regular, intentional acts that fit into your reality, never missing your obligatory prayers on time, setting aside even a few minutes daily with the Quran, sending salawat upon the Prophet throughout your day, making dua in the quiet before Fajr, or giving charity so secretly that even your closest family doesn't know. The point is not the size of the deed, but the sincerity and consistency behind it. The higher you rise in life, the more you need these hidden reserves, because the day will come when public applause will fade, when positions will change, when people's attention will move on. And in that moment, what will remain with you are the deeds you did solely for Allah's sake. Those will be your real treasures waiting for you in the hereafter. Never let the noise of success drown out the voice of your soul calling you to Allah. Keep that private line open, even when the world is pulling you in 1,000 directions, because it is not the size of your platform that matters to Allah, it is the state of your heart in the moments no one else sees. If you want your elevation to last, protect it with worship that no one can take from you. What you do in public will shape how people remember you. What you do in private will shape how Allah remembers you. Why hands you've reached down to pull up with you. When Allah elevates you, you must never forget that with every blessing comes accountability. This is not just a theological statement, it's a reality that should shape every decision you make. The Quran is clear, asterisk, then you will surely be asked that day about the pleasures, asterisk 102:8. That means the wealth you enjoyed, the influence you held, the skills you possessed, even the time you had, all of it will be questioned. We often think of blessings as rewards, but in truth, they are also assignments, and the higher Allah raises you, the heavier the assignment becomes. It's easy to think of accountability in a vague, distant way, something that will happen someday in the hereafter, but the wise believer lives with that awareness now in real time. Imagine you are given a valuable piece of property to manage. You know the owner will return, and you will have to present an account of how you managed it. That knowledge shapes how you treat it daily. You don't get careless just because the owner isn't physically present. That's exactly how we should view our blessings. They are on loan from Allah, and one day He will call us to account for every single one. From a psychological perspective, accountability is what keeps blessings from becoming corrupting forces. Without it, power feeds pride, wealth fuels greed, and influence turns into manipulation. But when you remember that Allah is watching not in a paranoid way, but in a conscious, reverent way, it keeps you honest. It keeps your intentions in check. It stops you from justifying wrong decisions simply because they are convenient or profitable. Philosophically, accountability reframes success. In worldly terms, success is measured by how much you gain. In the sight of Allah, success is measured by how well you fulfilled the trust. A person can die with very little in worldly terms, but pass the test brilliantly because they handled their small share with integrity. Another can die with empires under their name, but fail completely because they squandered their blessings or used them for harm. On the day of judgment, titles, bank balances, and applause will mean nothing. What will matter is, did you use what Allah gave you in a way that pleased Him? The Prophet captured this reality perfectly when he said that the feet of the son of Adam will not move on the day of judgment until he is asked about his life, his youth, his wealth, how he earned it, and how he spent it, and his knowledge, what he did with it. Notice that each question is about a resource. Your time, your health, your money, your intellect. These are the very things Allah often increases when He elevates you, which means elevation is not just a blessing, it's an increase in the number of questions you will face. So how do you prepare for that? By living as if the questioning could happen at any moment. Before you make a decision, ask yourself, if I had to explain this to Allah right now, would I be comfortable saying, Ya Allah, I use the blessing you gave me in this way because I believed it pleased you? That simple self-check is a powerful safeguard. Another way to prepare is by keeping your intentions pure and regularly renewing them. Our intentions can get clouded over time, especially when worldly rewards start coming in. What began as service to Allah can slowly morph into service to our own image or desires. That's why scholars of the past would say, I have never treated anything more difficult than my intention, because they knew, and we should know, that accountability starts in the heart. And here's the beauty. Living with accountability in mind does not limit you, it frees you. It frees you from chasing meaningless validation, because you're not trying to please everyone, just the one who matters most. It frees you from reckless decisions, because you're guided by a higher standard than short-term gain. And it frees you from regret, because when you act with the hereafter in mind, you don't waste blessings on things that won't matter there. When Allah elevates you, He's not just showing you favor, He's placing you under a brighter light. Everything you do is more visible, more impactful, and yes, more accountable. That reality should not scare you into inaction, but inspire you into intentional action. Use every blessing as if you're preparing your answer for the day of judgment, because in truth you are. Never forget, the higher you rise, the closer you get to the questioning, and the only elevation worth having is the one that will still be standing when you face Allah.